The ruins of Otrix 9 were silent under the pale light of the twin suns. Sergeant Elias Kane moved carefully through the broken streets, leading his squad with a mix of determination and caution. Each step was deliberate. Every shadow could conceal an enemy. The Noctari had learned that humans were unpredictable, and now Kane had learned that he could see what no one else could. The alien vampire queen Solara, who followed him like a ghost, testing him silently. Kane had grown used to her presence. At first it had been terrifying. Now it was a strange kind of challenge. She appeared without warning, sometimes close, sometimes distant, her glowing eyes fixed on him, her movements smooth and silent. He had learned to anticipate her, to understand her intentions, or at least part of them. And in doing so, he had grown sharper, faster, more aware than ever before. The squad moved toward a collapsed tower that had been partially cleared by previous attacks. Kane signaled them to halt, crouching behind a twisted metal beam. He scanned the area, sensing rather than seeing the danger that might be lying in wait. Then he felt it, Solara's presence. She stood on top of a broken wall, observing him. Her expression was unreadable, but Kane could feel the curiosity and calculation in her gaze. "You lead well," she said softly, her voice carried only to him. "Your kind is unpredictable. It is why you survive." "I don't know about that," Kane muttered, keeping his eyes on the surroundings. "I just do what I must." Solara tilted her head. "No, you do more than survive. You learn. You adapt. That is why I am here. To see how far humans can go, to see if one can surpass the limitations of fear." Kane did not respond. He could feel the weight of her gaze pressing against him like a physical force, but he also felt something else, a strange sense of purpose. The Queen's presence was a test, and he was determined to pass it. Not for her, not for the Noctari, but for humanity. The squad began their advance toward the tower. Kane led them carefully, scanning the ruins for traps and ambushes. The Noctari often struck from the shadows, invisible to everyone but him. He moved with precision, anticipating every attack, saving his team from danger that no one else could perceive. Suddenly, movement flickered at the edge of his vision. Kane froze. Solara had appeared closer this time, her figure blending with the shadows around her. She did not attack, but her presence alone was enough to make him tense. "What do you want from me?" Kane whispered under his breath. "Understanding," she replied, "and perhaps, to see if your kind can truly survive when faced with the impossible." Kane's heart pounded. She was not merely observing. She was testing him, pushing him to act beyond instinct, beyond training. He realized that this was more than a war of bullets or weapons. This was a war of perception, of strategy, of mind against mind. The squad reached the tower's base. The ground was unstable and debris threatened to collapse at every step. Kane signaled for them to spread out, scanning for any signs of the Noctari. His instincts screamed that they were nearby, hidden, waiting. Then the attack began. Shadows moved like living water, striking at the squad with unseen force. Bullets passed through thin air. Walls shifted impossibly. Panic could have erupted, but Kane's presence steadied them. He directed their movements, guiding them through the invisible dangers, countering ambushes no one else could anticipate. Solara appeared intermittently, observing from above or from a distance. She did not interfere, but Kane could feel her assessment in every decision he made. Her presence forced him to think faster, act smarter, push the limits of his abilities. Every success, every saved life was noted in her silent observation. After the attack, Kane led the squad to a safer section of the ruins. They were exhausted but alive. Kane allowed himself a brief moment to breathe, leaning against a shattered wall. "You did well today," Solara's voice whispered in his mind. "Better than I expected," Kane shivered. "Why do you care if I do well?" "You're not helping me. You could destroy me in an instant." Her eyes glowed faintly in the shadows. "I am not here to help. I am here to see, but you intrigue me. Your kind survives in ways my people cannot understand. That is remarkable." Kane considered her words. They were dangerous, yet there was truth in them. Humans had survived countless disasters, wars, and challenges. Against all odds, they endured. And now he realized that resilience was being tested in a new way, against a force that could not be seen, a force that had once been untouchable. The night passed uneventfully, but Kane could not rest. He remained alert, sensing her presence even in the darkness. He began to understand that their connection, strange as it was, gave him an advantage. He could predict movements, anticipate danger, and guide his team more effectively than ever. Over the next few days, Kane and Solara engaged in an unspoken dance. She appeared at critical moments, testing his reactions, observing how he handled impossible situations. He began to see patterns in her behavior, learning to anticipate her presence, even when it was invisible to everyone else. One evening, as the sun set and the ruins were bathed in twilight, Kane spoke aloud, though no one else could hear. "I don't understand why you're doing this. I don't know if I should trust you. But I do know one thing, I have to survive. Not for me. For them." Solara appeared in the doorway of a collapsed building, her eyes glowing faintly. "You have learned quickly, human. But there is still much to test. Your kind is strong but limited. I must see if you can go beyond your limits." Kane nodded slowly. "Then I'll keep surviving, no matter what comes." She tilted her head, observing him closely. "We shall see, human. We shall see." The following day, Kane led his squad through a particularly treacherous part of the colony. Debris littered the streets and shadows shifted unnaturally. The Noctari had set traps invisible to all but him. Kane moved with precision, guiding his team past dangers that would have killed them without his awareness. Solara appeared intermittently, sometimes close, sometimes distant. She observed his actions silently, assessing his instincts, his decisions, his resilience. Kane realized that she was learning as much from him as he was learning from her. Her presence, though dangerous, sharpened his mind, honed his abilities, and made him more aware of his surroundings than ever before. By nightfall, the squad had cleared a section of the ruins, finding temporary shelter in a partially intact building. Kane kept watch at the entrance, scanning for any signs of movement. The air was tense with anticipation. He felt her presence nearby. "You are improving," she whispered. "You adapt faster than I anticipated. Your kind is extraordinary." Kane tightened his grip on his rifle. "Extraordinary or not, I'll survive. And I'll make sure my team survives too." She regarded him silently, her glowing eyes reflecting both curiosity and calculation. "Perhaps you are more than a soldier. Perhaps you are the measure of what your kind can achieve. We shall see how far you can go." Kane's chest tightened with determination. The war was far from over, and the Noctari were still a threat. But now he understood something crucial. Humanity had an advantage that no other species could match. Their unpredictability, their resilience, their refusal to give in to fear, it made them dangerous, even to the most powerful enemies. As the night deepened, Kane watched the ruins of Otrix 9, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Solara's presence was a constant reminder that survival was not just about strength or weapons, but about perception, instinct, and the human spirit. And for the first time, Kane felt a strange confidence. He knew that he could face whatever the Noctari and the Queen threw at him. Humanity had a chance, and as long as he could see her and she watched him, he would continue to survive, continue to adapt, and continue to prove that humans were a force the universe could not ignore. The ruins of Otrix 9 were quiet, but the calm was deceptive. Sergeant Elias Kane led his squad through the shattered streets, every step cautious, every shadow a potential threat. For weeks he had faced the Noctari, invisible enemies that could strike from nowhere, and he had survived. Not because he was stronger, but because he could see what no one else could. The alien vampire queen, Solara, who had been observing him since the first night. Kane's mind was sharp, his instincts honed. He had learned to anticipate attacks, to guide his squad past traps, to survive situations that should have ended in disaster. Yet he knew that the final test had come. Solara's presence was more deliberate now. She no longer simply observed from the edges. She moved through the battlefield, assessing, waiting for the moment to challenge him directly. The squad entered the central plaza, a place that had once been the heart of the colony. Buildings lay in ruins, metal twisted, dust thick in the air. Kane's eyes flicked constantly, scanning for the slightest movement. His team followed, trusting him implicitly, unaware of the invisible predator that stalked them. Then she appeared, fully visible, standing on the highest piece of rubble in the plaza. Her glowing eyes locked onto Kane. She did not speak at first. She simply watched, her presence commanding the space, her power evident even to someone who had seen her before. "You have survived far longer than I anticipated. Human, Solara said softly, her voice both musical and dangerous. Your kind is remarkable. Kane raised his rifle, though he knew she could destroy him in an instant if she wished. Why are you here, Solara? What do you want from me? I want to see if humans can truly face the impossible, she replied. Your people are clever, adaptable, and relentless. I want to know if one can surpass even my expectations. Kane's jaw tightened. Then test me. I'll survive. Not for you, not for them, but for humanity. Solara's lips curved in a faint smile. Very well, human. Let us see what you are made of. With that, the shadows in the plaza shifted violently. The Noctari emerged, their forms flickering in and out of visibility, surrounding the squad from all sides. Kane's team raised their weapons, firing blindly, but most bullets passed through air where enemies should have been. Panic threatened to set in, but Kane's presence steadied them. Move to cover. Watch the corners! Stay tight! Kane shouted. He could see the Noctari, anticipate their strikes, dodge their attacks. Every move was calculated, every decision a matter of survival. Solara moved among them, observing closely. She did not attack directly, but her presence influenced the battle. Kane realized that she was testing not only him, but his team, seeing how humans work together under impossible conditions. A shadow lunged at Private Lin, but Kane pushed her aside just in time. Another attempted to strike from above, but Kane's instincts guided him to deflect it with his rifle. Each movement was a dance of survival, a testament to human adaptability. You are extraordinary, Solara whispered. No other human would react so quickly, so decisively. Your kind is dangerous. Kane's focus never wavered. Dangerous? Maybe, but we survive. That's what humans do. The battle raged, but Kane's guidance kept the squad alive. He realized that Solara was learning from him as much as he was learning from her. Her assessment sharpened his awareness, forcing him to anticipate moves before they happened, to act with precision. As the fight reached its peak, Kane noticed Solara moving closer. Her glowing eyes locked onto him directly. He felt the pull of her presence, the weight of her power. This was no longer a test of skill or perception. It was a test of will. You have done well, human, she said, her voice calm amidst the chaos. But the final trial awaits. Kane's heart pounded. He knew what that meant. She would strike not with shadows or illusions, but directly. If he failed, everything would end here. His squad, the colony, and perhaps even humanity's chance to understand the Noctari. Solara descended from her perch, her movements swift and deliberate. The air seemed to bend around her, shadows twisting and writhing as she moved. Kane raised his rifle, though he knew it might not be enough. He relied on instinct, on the human ability to adapt. You see me, she said, her voice almost a whisper. That is why you survive. But can you truly face me? I will, Kane replied firmly. I face what must be faced. That's what humans do. The final confrontation began. Solara attacked, moving faster than the eye could follow. Kane dodged, countered, and maneuvered with precision, guiding his team out of harm's way while focusing on the queen herself. He realized that her power was immense, but not absolute. She had limits, and those limits were the key to survival. As the battle continued, Kane used strategy over strength. He lured her toward unstable structures, forcing her to move carefully. He used light and sound, tools that humans understood in ways her kind did not. Each decision was calculated, each movement deliberate. Solara paused, assessing him. You are clever, human, far beyond what I expected. I'm human, Kane replied simply. That's what we do. We survive, we adapt, we fight when we must. Her eyes glowed brighter. For the first time, Kane saw hesitation, curiosity, and even respect in her gaze. She realized that humans were not to be underestimated, not because of weapons or technology, but because of their spirit. In a final move, Kane led Solara into a narrow corridor, forcing her to navigate the ruins with precision. He anticipated every strike, every movement. Then with a swift maneuver, he used the environment itself against her. Debris shifted, collapsing a section of the wall. Solara leapt back, narrowly avoiding being trapped. You have exceeded my expectations, she said, her voice a mixture of admiration and disbelief. No human has ever survived this long in my presence. Kane lowered his rifle, breathing heavily. Then I guess humans are worth noticing, worth fighting for. Solara regarded him for a long moment. Then, without warning, she disappeared into the shadows, vanishing from sight. Kane knew she had not left entirely. She would return, watch, and observe again. But for now, humanity had endured. The squad gathered around him, exhausted but alive. Kane's eyes scanned the ruins, still alert, still cautious. He knew the war was far from over, but he had proven something essential. Humans were not just survivors. They were formidable, resilient, and unpredictable. Later, as night fell over Otrix 9, Kane stood alone, gazing at the ruins. He felt a strange sense of accomplishment and understanding. Solara had tested him, challenged him, and in doing so had revealed the truth about humanity. Humans were capable of facing the impossible, surviving against odds that seemed insurmountable, and rising stronger with every challenge. "You are human," Solara's voice whispered in his mind, almost like a promise. "And your kind changes everything." Kane smiled faintly, his resolve stronger than ever. "Then we'll keep surviving," he said softly. "And we'll keep proving that humans are worth noticing." The ruins were quiet again, but Kane knew the universe had changed. Humanity had been seen by a force that should have been untouchable. And that recognition, terrifying as it was, filled him with hope. The Noctari were still out there, and Solara would watch again. But now Kane understood something vital. Humans were special. Their unpredictability, their courage, their determination, they could face even the most impossible enemy and survive. He turned back to his squad, who looked to him with trust and determination. "We move out," he said, "and we survive, no matter what comes." And somewhere in the shadows, Solara watched, her glowing eyes reflecting both curiosity and respect. Humanity had proven itself, not through power alone, but through will, spirit, and the courage to face the darkness without turning away. The legend of Sergeant Elias Kane would spread. The tale of the human soldier who could see the alien vampire queen, who survived when no one else could, would inspire generations. Humanity had faced the impossible, and emerged stronger, unbroken, and unforgettable, and the universe would never forget it. Princess Zelira of the Avaran Empire stood on the balcony of her palace, her eyes scanning the vast crowd that had gathered below. Thousands of beings from countless worlds had come, drawn by the announcement she had made only days earlier. "I will marry only someone brave enough to stand before me," she had declared. The words had sent ripples across the galaxy. Many had tried to understand what it meant, and even more had quietly hoped they could be the one to accept her challenge. Yet none had dared. The palace square was a dazzling display of colors, shapes, and lights. Alien species of all forms mingled in anticipation. Some were tall and elegant, with limbs that shimmered in the sunlight. Others were small, almost insect-like, with wings that fluttered in intricate patterns. The crowd hummed with curiosity, speculation, and quiet anxiety. Each suitor had traveled for weeks, months, or even years to reach this moment, and yet, as they glanced at each other, none stepped forward. Solira's heart was steady. She had seen the hesitation before. Many had approached her palace, claiming courage, only to falter in the presence of her people. The trials were known across the stars. They were not tests of strength or weapon skill. They were trials of intellect, empathy, and creativity. Challenges designed to reveal not just who someone was, but what they were capable of. The Avaran valued wisdom and compassion above all, and any suitor who failed these tests would be seen as unfit to join the royal family. As she looked out at the crowd, a flicker of disappointment crossed her face. The crowd had begun to thin. One by one, the would-be suitors stepped back, whispering excuses to their companions. Some muttered about the impossibility of the trials. Others admitted quietly that they feared failing in front of an entire galaxy. And yet, Zelira's gaze fell on a single figure standing alone at the very edge of the square. He was human. She had noticed him immediately, not because he was tall or strong, but because he did not move with hesitation like the others. He stood calmly, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on her balcony. His dark hair shone in the light, and his simple clothing made him appear almost ordinary among the extravagant beings surrounding him. Yet there was something about the way he held himself, something steady, quiet, and unshakable, that drew her attention. A murmur ran through the remaining crowd. Humans were rare in the Avaran Empire. They were newcomers to the stars, young and untested compared to the long-lived civilizations that had dominated interstellar politics for centuries. Many considered them fragile, reckless, or incapable of understanding the complex customs of older species. And yet, Here he was, the only one brave enough to step forward when everyone else had stepped back. Zelira raised her hand slightly, signaling for silence. She watched as the human began to move forward, each step measured and confident. The crowd held its breath. There was no arrogance in his movements, no show of strength or aggression. He simply walked forward, as if accepting a challenge that others feared to touch. When he reached the steps of the palace, he paused, looking up at the balcony where Zelira stood. His voice was calm but firm as he spoke. "I am Daniel. I accept your challenge." For a moment, the crowd seemed frozen in disbelief. Many whispered to each other. A human? The first one brave enough? Could he really succeed? The palace itself seemed to lean forward in anticipation. Zelira studied him carefully. There was a quiet honesty in his eyes, a lack of pretense, and yet a spark of determination that told her he was not here by accident. "Very well, Daniel," she said, her voice carrying across the square. "Step forward. You will undergo the trials of the Averin. Only then will you prove whether you are worthy." Daniel nodded once without hesitation. There was no fear in his expression, only respect for the task ahead. Many in the crowd had assumed the trials would drive him away, as they had driven away countless others. Yet he did not falter. The first trial would take place immediately in the Hall of Customs, a vast chamber within the palace. It was a place where the young and untested were introduced to the complex traditions of the Averin people. Here, suitors would demonstrate not physical strength, but their ability to understand and adapt to a culture far older and more intricate than their own. Zelira led Daniel through towering doors, the walls shimmering with intricate carvings that depicted the history of her people. As they entered the hall, Daniel's eyes widened slightly. The chamber was filled with long tables covered in exotic foods, each dish accompanied by detailed instructions on its proper preparation and consumption. Averin etiquette was precise and nuanced. Mistakes could be seen as disrespectful or even offensive. Many previous suitors had faltered here, unable to navigate the subtle expectations of the royal court. Daniel listened carefully as attendants explained the rules. He asked questions when he was uncertain and laughed gently at his own mistakes. He did not try to fake understanding, nor did he pretend to know things he did not. There was a simplicity in his approach, but also a respect that was rare among the visitors who had come to court Zelira. Zelira watched him closely. She could see the way he observed the details, remembered instructions, and adapted quickly. Where others had shown arrogance or impatience, Daniel showed humility and curiosity. The chamber seemed almost to respond to him, the air of tension easing slightly as he moved from table to table, engaging with the tasks before him with steady hands and an open mind. Outside the hall, the crowd waited anxiously. They had expected spectacle, failure, perhaps even drama, but Daniel moved through the trial with quiet determination. Observers whispered among themselves. "He is learning faster than anyone else," one remarked. "It is as if he belongs here," another added. Hours passed. Daniel tasted unfamiliar dishes, handled delicate implements, and followed intricate rituals, all while asking thoughtful questions and maintaining a respectful demeanor. The Averin attendants were impressed, noting his adaptability and the way he seemed to genuinely seek understanding, rather than merely perform for approval. Finally, Zelira stepped forward, signaling the end of the first trial. She smiled faintly, a rare expression that conveyed both approval and curiosity. "You have done well," she said. "You have shown respect for my people and for our customs. Few have ever succeeded at this stage." Daniel bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Princess. I still have much to learn, but I will do my best." The crowd erupted in whispers and muted cheers. They had witnessed something remarkable. A human once considered fragile and inexperienced had not only survived the first trial but had done so with a grace and intelligence that many seasoned suitors lacked. As Daniel left the Hall of Customs, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The trial had not been easy, but he had approached it as he approached all challenges in life, with honesty, curiosity, and a willingness to learn. He knew that greater challenges awaited him, but for the first time, he felt a sense of possibility that others had long doubted. Princess Zelira lingered on the balcony, watching him move through the palace corridors. She had expected hesitation, perhaps even fear, but there was none. In its place was something unexpected, a quiet bravery, a humanity that shone through in every action he took. She had seen many beings come before her, but none had approached the trials with this combination of courage and humility. And so, as the twin suns began to set over the Averan capital, casting long shadows across the marble squares and spires, Daniel's journey had only just begun. The galaxy had watched, waiting to see who among the many would dare to step forward, and for the first time a human had done so. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, spreading across the square like wildfire. "Perhaps humans are not so weak," one said. "Perhaps there is something extraordinary in them," another added. And far above, Princess Celera could not help but wonder what it truly meant to face a human who was willing to act when no one else would. The stage was set, and the trials had begun. A single step forward had changed the course of the day, and perhaps the course of the galaxy itself. The weeks after the drone encounter were tense but productive. Mira and the Queen had established a fragile rhythm, a silent language of pulses and patterns. The crew still watched closely, but curiosity had replaced some of their fear. Scientists took careful notes. Engineers improved the light and sound systems Mira had improvised, and even Cade had begun to treat the Queen with a cautious respect. Mira knew it was only a matter of time before the higher command demanded action. One morning, the ship's sensors picked up a new signal. Unlike the previous drones, this one was different, calculated, deliberate, and unmistakably intelligent. The signal originated from the reef world, from the colony of creatures that belonged to the Queen. They were aware of her absence. The sensors indicated they were sending a search pattern, likely not hostile, but curious and insistent. The ship's captain called another meeting. "We cannot contain her forever," Captain Reese said. "We either hand her over or we find a way to return her to the planet. Anything else is unacceptable." Mira's chest tightened. "We can return her safely," she said. "We can communicate with them. We can avoid conflict, but we have to act carefully." Reese raised an eyebrow. "You expect me to trust a medic and a glowing alien to handle this?" "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly," Mira replied. "I'm asking you to trust intelligence and empathy. We've already proven that works." There was a pause. Finally, the captain said, "You have 12 hours. If you fail, the Queen goes into containment and we prepare for possible conflict." Mira turned to the Queen, who was resting on the padded cot. Her glow pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Mira leaned close. "They're scared. You're scared too, but I promise we can do this together." The Queen responded with a slow wave of light. It was not a mimic, Mira realized, but a choice, a decision to trust. The first challenge was preparing the Queen for travel. She could not simply be carried to the surface without drawing attention. The ship's security insisted on restraints, which Mira refused. "She won't respond well to that," she explained. "It will make them defensive. We need her calm and willing." Using a combination of her previous experiments and newly rigged devices, Mira created a mobile chamber. Soft padding lined the interior, and small light panels could pulse in patterns the Queen recognized. A sound modulator played rhythmic tones similar to the heartbeat sequences that had calmed her before. Mira and two scientists gently guided the Queen inside. She shifted once, testing their intentions, then relaxed when Mira activated the familiar light patterns. The Queen's glow brightened, and Mira felt a surge of hope. "See?" she whispered. "You trust me." The journey to the planet was tense. The ship descended through the atmosphere, navigating storms and high winds. Mira stayed close to the Queen, keeping the light and sound patterns steady. Outside, the world below was a frozen expanse of ice and strange, jagged reefs. Mira had never seen anything like it. Vast plains of frozen crystal, jagged cliffs, and deep crevices where the Queen's species thrived. Finally, they reached a neutral landing zone, chosen because it was visible but safe, a plateau high above the main hive structures. Mira carefully moved the Queen from the mobile chamber to the icy ground. She activated the light and sound patterns once more. The Queen's glow pulsed brightly, scanning the horizon. Then in the distance, shapes began to move. The colony had arrived. Mira could see dozens of creatures, smaller than the Queen but similar in form, moving with coordinated precision. Their bodies glowed faintly, each pulse synchronized with the next, creating a flowing pattern that lit the frozen landscape. Mira realized she was witnessing an entire language, communicated through light and rhythm. The Queen raised a long limb, and the smaller creatures responded instantly. Mira watched in awe as the swarm seemed to acknowledge the Queen's presence. She tapped out a simple rhythm on the ground, repeating one the Queen had taught her, and the Queen mirrored it. The smaller aliens paused, then pulsed in response. Mira exhaled, relief washing over her. "It worked," she whispered. "They understand. You're home." But the moment was tense, not triumphant. Mira knew the colony could react unpredictably. Any wrong move could trigger aggression. She stayed low, keeping her hands visible, and let the Queen take the lead. Slowly, the Queen approached the colony, glowing patterns flowing across her body. The smaller creatures responded, surrounding her but not touching. The exchange was a conversation in light, invisible to humans but clear in its intent. Mira watched, amazed, as the Queen paused, then extended a limb toward the humans. It was an invitation, not a threat. Mira stepped forward carefully. She tapped out a rhythm on the ground, a gesture of peace, and the Queen responded with a soft, steady glow. The colony seemed to accept the humans' presence, their lights dimming slightly as they watched. It was then that Mira realized the full extent of the moment. Humanity had reached across a gulf of species and found understanding without force. Their intelligence and patience had earned trust. She could see it in the way the Queen moved, in the way the colony responded. For the first time, humans and this alien species shared a moment of true communication. The captain's voice came over the comm link. "Mira, status?" Mira tapped out another rhythm, one the Queen had taught her. The Queen pulsed in response, then Mira translated it quickly. "Safe," she said. "They recognize us as allies." "No hostility." "Understood," the captain replied. "Good work. Prepare to report back." Mira looked at the Queen. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it." The Queen's glow brightened and Mira felt warmth radiate through her chest. She realized that the Queen's trust had not been given lightly. It was the result of weeks of care, attention, and understanding. She had earned this moment. As the humans began to document the scene, Mira stayed close to the Queen. She touched the creature's side gently and the Queen pulsed in response. The rhythmic glow seemed to say, "You are a friend. You are part of this now." For hours, Mira and the Queen communicated through light and sound. Each pulse was a word, each pattern a sentence. Mira learned new sequences, new rhythms, new ways of understanding the alien mind. She realized that this was only the beginning. Humanity had made contact, not through weapons or domination, but through empathy, patience, and courage. As the sun began to set over the frozen landscape, Mira allowed herself a rare moment of quiet. The Queen settled beside her, antennae brushing gently against her arm. Mira watched the colony in the distance, their lights twinkling like stars across the ice. She felt a sense of peace but also responsibility. She whispered, "We will protect you. We will learn from you. And we will make sure the humans understand too." The Queen's glow pulsed slowly, a soft wave that echoed Mira's heartbeat. She had chosen her, just as Mira had chosen to protect her. Together they had bridged two worlds, and Mira knew that the challenges ahead would be many, but so would the rewards. In that moment, the human medic and the alien Queen shared a bond that was stronger than fear, stronger than misunderstanding. It was a bond built on trust, on care, and on the quiet, determined belief that life, any life, was worth protecting. As darkness fell over the plateau, the glow from the Queen and her colony cast long, shimmering patterns across the ice. Mira sat quietly, letting the lights wash over her. She felt the weight of history in that moment, the fragile, beautiful possibility of coexistence. She had fallen asleep once alone. Now she rested with a Queen in her arms, surrounded by a world that had learned to recognize the value of trust and empathy. And for the first time in her life, Mira felt truly awake. The war had been raging for months. Earth's colonies on the outer planets were under constant attack from a race humans barely understood. The enemy was unlike anything humanity had faced before. They were silent, swift, and invisible to almost every human eye. Soldiers who returned from missions spoke of shadows that moved on their own, whispers in the dark, and a presence that seemed to watch them without being seen. They called it the Noctari, though the truth of what they were remained a mystery. Sergeant Elias Kane had been on dozens of missions. He was not the type to believe in ghost stories or invisible monsters. He trusted in training, in his instincts, and in the skills that had made him one of Earth's most reliable soldiers. But that night, on the abandoned mining colony of Orcs 9, even he felt a chill that went beyond fear. Something was watching, and it was not human. The landing shuttle had touched down with a gentle thrum, and the team disembarked into the ruins. The colony had been destroyed long before, its buildings twisted metal skeletons, dust swirling in the cold wind. Kane's squad moved cautiously, weapons raised, scanning the shadows for any sign of life. "Nothing yet," muttered Private Lynn, her voice tight. "Feels too quiet," Kane nodded. "Quiet was never good in war. Stay sharp." We move in pairs, eyes on each other. As they advanced, Kane felt it, a flicker in the corner of his vision, just a shadow that didn't belong. He stopped and turned, but the street was empty. Only ruins, only silence. His pulse quickened. "Sergeant, you okay?" Lynn asked, noticing his hesitation. "Yeah," he said, though his voice was tight. "Keep moving." They continued, the team spread through the ruined streets. Then it happened again, a movement barely perceptible, like a ripple in the air. Kane froze, hand gripping his rifle. He could see her this time. A figure, pale and tall, with eyes that glowed faintly like embers. She stood on the roof of a building, watching. And the strangest part, no one else in his squad could see her. "Do you see that?" Kane hissed, pointing upward. "See what?" Lynn asked, following his gaze. Her eyes narrowed. "I don't see anything." Kane's heart pounded. The figure moved slowly, gracefully, with a confidence that made him uneasy. It was a predator, he realized, one that had not expected to be seen. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft, almost musical, yet it carried over the distance as if she was standing right next to him. "How can you see me, human?" The words froze him. He looked around at his team. None of them reacted. None of them heard her. Only he could see her. "What the—" he whispered. She tilted her head, studying him with curiosity and something that felt like amusement. Her presence was chilling, yet mesmerizing. He had never felt fear like this, not from bullets or explosions, but from a being that should not be there. Kane backed away slowly, still keeping her in sight. "I don't know," he said honestly. I just see you." Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped down from the roof. She moved with a fluid grace, like shadows themselves were carrying her. No other human has ever done this. Ever. The rest of the squad advanced, unaware of the danger. Lynn noticed Kane's hesitation and frowned. "Sergeant, what is it?" He shook his head. "Nothing. Keep your eyes forward." But he knew it was a lie. Something about her presence made him aware of every sound, every flicker of movement. She was not just watching. They were connected somehow. The squad reached the central plaza of the colony. Broken machinery and shattered glass littered the ground. And there she was again, standing silently on a pile of debris, watching him. Kane's instincts screamed that this was no ordinary enemy, no human, no alien species humanity had studied. She was something else entirely. Suddenly, a warning horn echoed from the shuttle. Another Noctari attack. Kane's team scattered into the buildings for cover. Bullets fired, but most of them passed through shadows. The enemy was invisible to everyone except Kane. He could see her moving between them, but she was not attacking. Not yet. Kane ducked behind a wall, heart racing. "Everyone stay low. Watch your sectors." Lynn fired blindly into the darkness. "What the hell is going on?" "I don't know," Kane admitted. "But we've got a target only I can see." He focused on the figure. She moved closer, not with hostility but curiosity. Her eyes met his, and he felt something strange. A pull, a challenge. She was testing him, seeing how he would react. "Why me?" Kane whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "Why can I see you?" She tilted her head again, as if amused by his question. "Because you are human." "Because humans are—" "Different." Kane swallowed hard. "Different how?" He had been trained for war, for survival, for tactics. But nothing had prepared him for this. "Different?" He echoed. "Yes," she said softly. "You are the first to see me. And because of that, you are interesting." The team regrouped in a ruined building, barricading the entrances. Kane kept his eyes on her. She circled the plaza like a predator surveying prey, yet she never attacked. She was learning as much as he was. Kane felt a mixture of fear and fascination. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. This was a being that should not exist in his world, and yet here she was, watching him, knowing him in ways he could not understand. The night dragged on. The Noctari attacks came in waves, invisible, deadly, but Kane's awareness kept him alive. He could anticipate their moves, avoid their traps, and even save a few of his squad mates from disappearing into the shadows. Every time he acted, Solara, the queen, watched, her presence both comforting and terrifying. Hours passed. The first light of dawn began to break through the ruins. She stepped back, disappearing into the shadows as if she had never been there. Kane's squad, exhausted and shaken, looked around at each other, unsure what had just happened. "What happened out there?" Lynn asked, voice trembling. "Where did they go?" "They're gone," Kane said, though he knew it was not true. One of them had left a mark, a presence that only he could feel. She was still there somewhere, watching, waiting. Kane looked toward the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight hit the metal ruins. He felt a chill, but also a strange resolve. If this queen could be seen by him, then maybe humanity had a chance. Maybe the human mind, with all its unpredictability and resilience, could face the impossible. He knew this was only the beginning. The war would continue. The Noctari would return. And somewhere out there, the alien vampire queen watched, curious, calculating, and aware that one human soldier had pierced the veil no other could. For the first time in history, Elias Kane understood that he was not just a soldier fighting for survival. He was humanity's first line of sight against an enemy that should have been invisible, and that realization, terrifying as it was, filled him with a sense of purpose he had never felt before. As the sun rose higher, Kane gathered his squad. "We move out," he ordered, "and we survive, no matter what." And somewhere in the shadows, she watched, her glowing eyes fixed on him, whispering to herself, "How can you see me, human?"